Welcome to my Amari Communications channel on YouTube. I'm Richard Cole, and this is my review of the digital reissue of the Jacksons' Destiny. February 12th, Sony Legacy released digital-only reissues of the Jacksons' classic albums on Epic Records, the self-titled debut The Jacksons, Going Places, and Destiny. For my reviews of the Jacksons and Going Places, please check out those videos on the Amari Communications YouTube channel. The Destiny album, out of the three digital reissues, for me was the most anticipated. Being a lifelong Jacksons fan, growing up in the 70s, I remember reading about how the Jacksons were dissatisfied at Motown and wanted to leave because they wanted to write and produce their own songs. I mean, the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, they were a very huge group. You can mention them in the same breath as an Earth, Wind & Fire or the Isley Brothers or Stevie Wonder. The difference being that Stevie Wonder, the Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind & Fire were able to write and produce a lot of their own songs, where the Jacksons at Motown didn't have that luxury. So when they made the jump over to Epic Records, granted, the Jacksons and Going Places were produced by Gamble and Huff. The Jacksons were allowed at least 2 songs per album in which to, write and produce their own material. And actually, Gamble and Huff were originally going to produce the third record, but they felt that, hey, the Jacksons are strong enough to write and produce their own material. Why not let them have a crack at it? So Destiny was definitely a much anticipated album. It was kind of weird and confusing with the first single, Blame It on the Boogie, because you had a M. Jackson listed in the credits, but that wasn't Michael Jackson. It was a guy named Mick Jackson who had a hit with that song. But at the same time, the Jacksons also recorded a version of it, and that was released like within weeks or maybe a month or 2 later. But when Shake Your Body was released as the second single from Destiny, any doubts about what the Jacksons can accomplish on their own were immediately erased with that record. That was actually one of the first 45s I bought with my own money in 1979. I was 13. So a month later, ended up getting the album, and that spring of 1979, I about wore the grooves off of that, along with Funkadelic's One Nation Under Groove 2. Both of those albums were in constant rotation. All right. So among their Epic Records tenure, Destiny is a very personal favorite. I love Triumph as well, but there's no word of that being reissued in any way, shape, or form yet. So we're going to stick with talking about the Destiny album. I used to have an original vinyl of that album along with the original CD. Both of those are missing in action. But in 2009, I bought the CD reissue, which had both remixes of Shake Your Body Down to the Ground and Blame It on the Boogie. I've repurchased the vinyl just a few years ago. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the original Epic Records label. It has the current Epic Records label that was adopted around late in 1979. So once again, I was very excited to hear what the digital reissue would sound like. Again, they did not mention that the albums were remastered. although listening to all three of the digital reissues, I would suspect that there has been some remastering, no remixing, a la what Giles Martin does with the Beatles material and some other classic box sets of classic albums from other artists as well. So, but it's really a great listen sonically. There are, once again, overall nuances that I'm more aware of compared to even the 2009 reissue of Destiny. That may have had the benefit of a 20 or 24-bit remastering process. But there are things with this Destiny reissue that I noticed that are different from the 2009 CD reissue, as well as any pressing of the original vinyl. Again, just like the Jacksons and Going Places, with Destiny, overall, there is more range with the mix. Again, there are subtle nuances that are more noticeable in the mixes as well. For example, Blame It on the Boogie, the guitars are more balanced. So you get to hear Tito Jackson, Ronald Batista, and Michael Cimbello. All of their guitars, you finally get to hear all three within the rhythm arrangement of that track. Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. The synth bass, once again, has way more of a range in the digital reissue. It has a feel of the original vinyl to me, sonically. Something that has been kind of missing on the CD pressings. And I don't really hear it as prominent as I do on, well, as far as the digital reissue, I hear it better than I do with even the sort of subsequent vinyl pressing that I own. The digital reissue, I'm really able to enjoy the musicianship on this album. The Jacksons have always benefited from having great studio musicians on virtually all of their records. The Motown records, the earlier ones, you still had members of the Funk Brothers. Later, you might have had classic LA musicians, maybe possibly some members of the Wrecking Crew may have participated on some of those later Jacksons albums. But when they got to Epic, they had the benefit of having the Philadelphia International / Sigma Sound Studios musicians, MFSB. But with Destiny and with the Jacksons calling the shots on this record, they were able to pick among the best of the best in modern music, or the best of the late 20th century musicians. We mentioned Michael Cimbello earlier. He played with Stevie Wonder on Songs in the Key of Life. Greg Phillinganes is another unsung hero of this album. He's played with or worked with Earth, Wind, and Fire. He's worked with Stevie Wonder also on Songs in the Key of Life as well. So the Jacksons, with their knowledge base, were able to combine a lot of their influences and go after the perfect musicians for this record. And probably a work ethic that continued even with Michael's solo work, with Quincy Jones and the level of musicianship. Some of those musicians are still holdovers from Destiny and from Triumph. You have Paul Jackson Jr., no relation, who plays fantastic rhythm guitar throughout. Paulina DaCosta, Tom Tom 84. These were, as I was learning to kind of read album credits as a kid, or study album credits or liner notes as a kid, seeing these names appear on the Jacksons, appear on Quincy Jones records, appear on Earth, Wind and Fire records. Sonically, you got something out of those albums that you just didn't get with any other artist, no matter how great those albums may have been from other artists. But when you were listening to those, you knew you were listening to something special. This becomes more apparent with side 2 of Destiny. Again, songs had a lot of surprises for me sonically. I hear them differently than any other physical media that I've owned. Also more enjoyable to listen to, and I get, again, more of their influences. And you could tell with this album, they were sort of planting their flag. They were letting everybody know, that they could stand up to in Earth, Wind and Fire. Let's see, All Night Dancing, that track, that was on level with anything funky the Isley Brothers were doing at that time. That's What You Get for Being Polite. That could have fit on any FM radio's playlist, or program format. Bless His Soul, everything that they learned working with Gamble and Huff on those first 2 Jacksons albums, those lessons have been applied to that track. And it kind of fuses a little bit of Bee Gees, in my opinion, kind of towards the end a little bit. It kind of has that little Bee Gees harmony feel to it. The title track itself, Destiny, the Eagles, Doobie Brothers, the Jacksons were definitely letting you know that they can hang in each and every one of those circles. And a little fun fact for all of my listeners of Amari Purple Talk, the track Push Me Away, while Tom Tom 84 does a lot of the string arrangements on the Destiny album, the track Push Me Away is significant because the strings on that track are done by Claire Fisher. And those that are unaware of Claire Fisher, for listeners of Amari Purple Talk who are all Prince fans, Claire did the string arrangements for a lot of great Prince music, starting with the Protégé Act, The Family, also most notably from the Parade album and subsequent tracks on albums for many, many years on Prince tracks. And also the string arranger for Shaka Khan and Rufus. So definitely give the track Push Me Away a listen as well. Finally, we have the bonus tracks of the expanded edition. To me, the bonus tracks on this expanded edition of Destiny are far superior to the bonus tracks from the Jacksons as well as Going Places. There were a couple of tracks I did enjoy as far as the bonus material. I did enjoy from the Jacksons. The Going Places, I was a little disappointed because there really weren't anything available in the way of remixes, 12-inch versions. The highlights for the bonus features on Destiny are the 12-inch versions of Blame It on the Boogie and Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. Both of these remixes were produced by John Luongo. You can find both of these mixes if you buy the 2009 reissue of the Destiny CD. For me, these bring back great memories. Being a teenager, listening to WESL AM. In fact, that was the only station that was playing the 12-inch versions of those tracks, while all the other radio stations were still playing either the 45 version or the original album version. So I definitely enjoy revisiting those two versions that were done by John Luongo. There is a remix of That's What You Get for Being Polite that was produced by DJ Reverend P. That one, just like the Living Together remix by Dimitri from Paris, that's on the Jackson's expanded version digital release, seems to be a newer version, or kind of a 2021 remix of, where they just cherry picked a song and remixed it. I didn't enjoy this remix as much as I enjoyed the Living Together remix. I think the Living Together remix from the Jacksons album benefited from Dimitri's passion for 70s music, while to me the Reverend or DJ Reverend P remix of That's What You Get for Being Polite, I get it, because I've been in clubs where there are these kind of mixes to certain songs where the remix tempo is much faster than the original tempo of the original mix of a song. And it does have its purpose in clubs. But just from a personal standpoint, to me, it just didn't quite work. I just prefer the original album mix, even the 7-inch version, where it kind of fades out at the synthesizer solo. That's just more my speed, where the Living Together remix, again, that's Gamble and Huff, that would have fit inside of a discotheque in 1976. So with what Dimitri from Paris was able to do with that is actually just take it to another level. It still sounds like you could play it in a discotheque in 1976, but the spin that he puts on it kind of has that Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards feel to it. But the remix of That's What You Get for Being Polite, again, like I said, if I was in the club now and DJ puts that particular remix on, again, I get it, and I would just go, oh, hey, it's the Jacksons. But if it helps to get younger listeners or club listeners to get into not only Destiny, but also Going Places and the Jacksons, definitely that's a good thing. Again, I think a lot of people are highly aware of Michael Jackson's solo material, from Off the Wall, Thriller, Dangerous. But Destiny, I think, kicked the door wide open to give not only the Jacksons, but really kind of give Michael Jackson that confidence to be in a position to do an Off the Wall, which then gave him the confidence to do a Thriller and just transcend pop music as a whole. So if you are a Michael Jackson fan and you're kind of unaware of this era, by all means, check this album out. The majority of the tracks were written by all 5 brothers, but the tracks that, Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, the hit single off this album, written by Michael and Randy. That's What You Get for Being Polite, written by Michael and Randy. Those were like my favorite tracks, because I remember having the 45 and I played the B-side just as much as I played the A-side of it. But again, just what they accomplished as a group, as a whole, I think this solidified that, they can hang with the biggest legends of R&B or pop music within the mid to late 70s, and definitely going into the 80s as well. So that's going to wrap it up for my review of the Destiny album. By all means, check it out. It is a bit of a shame that this is not going to be available on physical media, at least for the time being. I mean, maybe something might come out later this year or next year, but by all means, whatever digital platform you have, or if you're buying from Amazon Music or buy it from Apple Music, definitely, by all means, check them out. These are great albums. With the exception of Destiny, the other two might have been a little bit lost in the shuffle here and there, but check them out. But pound for pound, what the Jacksons wanted to accomplish by leaving Motown, they definitely succeeded with the Destiny album. And again, if you don't have it or if you haven't heard it, by all means, check it out. And later on, I'll probably do a comparison of the digital reissue versus the vinyl and versus the 2009 reissue of Destiny. Maybe take a deeper dive into the listening experiences of all three and which would be the best listening experience. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get an update on when that will drop, as well as checking out my show, Amari Purple Talk, every Monday, not only here on YouTube, but also on your favorite podcast platform. So until then, let's just keep it funky and on the one.